Here's something that might actually surprise you. Despite that fierce, really emotional debate you see all over the internet, the current medical research overwhelmingly suggests that safe sleep training does not harm your baby. And we're going to unpack all that science right here. Welcome to Sleepidia, your corner of the internet for the science of sleep and circadian rhythms. If you're a new parent, you've probably felt this deep in your bones. It's this agonizing feeling, like you have to choose between your baby's need for sleep and their emotional safety. It feels like a totally impossible decision, right? So in this explainer, we're going to walk through this whole thing together. We'll start with that core dilemma, get really clear on what cried out actually means, and then put the science up against our biggest fears. We'll also talk about your well-being as a parent, and finally, lay out a safe approach. By the end, you'll have what you need to make the best choice for your family. Okay, so let's just start by acknowledging that feeling. The anxiety around sleep training is so real, and honestly, it's one of the toughest emotional hurdles of early parenthood. This quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? You want them to rest, of course, but you're absolutely terrified that letting them cry might cause some kind of damage. And that instinct to protect them is so powerful. But the need for rest, for your baby and for you, is just as important. And that's where the science can offer some real clarity.
Now, before we can even touch the science, we have to be super clear about what we're even talking about. Cry it out has kind of become this catch-all phrase. But in sleep medicine, the methods are actually pretty specific.
So on one end of the spectrum, you've got extinction. This is what most people picture, that old school approach where you just don't go back in until morning. But then on the other side, there's graduated extinction, which you might know as the Ferber Method. This one is way more common today. With this method, you actually go back in for brief reassuring check-ins, just at intervals that get a little longer each time. Now, this is crucial. When scientists study sleep training, they are almost always studying this graduated check-in method. All right, let's get to the core of it. We're going to tackle the two biggest fears that keep parents up at night. Sometimes, honestly, even more than their babies do. This is fear number one, isn't it? The big one. Is my baby gonna stop crying because they've learned to self-soothe, or is it because they've learned that I'm just not coming back? Will they stop trusting me? Well, the science on this is remarkably clear. A major study in 2020 followed babies and found absolutely no difference in attachment security by the time they were 18 months old. The key finding? The babies who were sleep trained were just as securely bonded to their mothers as the babies who weren't. So the really crucial point here is this. Your bond isn't built or broken in a few tough minutes at bedtime. It's forged in the thousands of loving, responsive interactions you have with your child all day long during their waking hours. That's what creates a secure attachment. Okay, on to fear number two, the stress hormone cortisol. You've probably heard the scary stuff, that letting a baby cry floods their brain with toxic stress and causes permanent damage. Let's take a look at what the research actually says about stress. This slide illustrates the difference brilliantly. Toxic stress is what we're all afraid of. It comes from long-term neglect or abuse, and yes, it's deeply harmful. But scientists also talk about something called positive stress. Just think about the frustration a baby feels when they're learning to crawl. It's a short-term, manageable challenge that helps them build a new skill. The research suggests that learning to fall asleep on their own actually falls into this positive stress category. And, the real irony here is that while sleep training involves a short period of stress, the outcome is actually less stress overall. Studies show that babies who are well-rested, who aren't chronically overtired, often have lower baseline cortisol levels during the day. So better sleep equals a less stressed baby. Okay, now let's talk about the huge piece of this puzzle that almost always gets ignored. You, the parent. The debate almost always focuses 100% on the baby, but from a medical standpoint, that's a major, major oversight. In medicine, we sometimes talk about the invisible patient. That's the caregiver whose health is absolutely critical to the primary patient's well-being, but is often completely overlooked. In the sleep training debate, the parent is that invisible patient. And your health matters immensely. We know for a fact that severe sleep deprivation is a massive trigger for postpartum depression and anxiety. And the research consistently shows that when sleep training works, it doesn't just help the baby, it significantly improves the mother's mood. A rested parent is a more responsive parent. When you think of it that way, it's not selfish at all. It's a medical intervention for the entire family system. So if you've weighed the evidence and you've decided, okay, this might be the right path for my family, the question becomes, how do you do it safely and effectively? It's definitely not about just closing the door and hoping for the best. There's a plan. This slide lays out 5 key steps for success. First up, check the calendar. Make sure your baby is developmentally ready. That's usually between 4 to 6 months old. And make sure they're not sick or teething. Second, create a solid bedtime routine. This is what signals to their brain that sleep is coming. Third, and this one is so important, put them in the crib drowsy but still awake. They need to practice falling asleep on their own. Fourth, set your timer. Decide on your check-in plan before you start. And finally, the most important step, be consistent. Giving mixed signals is the #1 reason sleep training fails. You have to commit to the plan for about 5 to 7 days to really see progress. So where does all of this leave us? After looking at the fears, the science, and the well-being of the whole family, what's the final takeaway here? It's this: the scientific consensus is unambiguous. When sleep training is done at the right age, within a loving and responsive home, it is not harmful. Think of it like a short-term investment for an absolutely invaluable long-term gain: a well-rested child and a functional, happier family. Ultimately, you are the expert on your child. If this method just feels wrong in your gut, there are other options. But if you do choose to move forward, this quote is the key takeaway: do it without guilt. You aren't ignoring your baby. You are teaching them a vital life skill. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. What if we reframe this entire process? What if it's not about stopping a cry, but about starting a skill? The skill of independent sleep, which is going to serve them and you for years and years to come.